I go live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's SAP Community call in a YouTube live stream. I'm Svea Becker, and I'm part of the SAP Community team. And here with me together, I have Mladen Droshev. He is the lead of Fundamental Library, and Eniela Vela. She is the developer. She is a developer in the Fundamental Library department. And the topic of today's call is web forms in Fundamental Library. And this is only the first part. We are going to have a second part next week as well. So stay tuned here in YouTube. Oh, it's not next week. I think it's in 2 weeks. So you have enough time to think about what happens today and to raise your questions. And also in regards to the questions for today's call, use the chat here in YouTube and we will come back to you at the end of the session. Having this said, I think we are ready to go and I hand over to Deno. The stage is yours. Thanks for being here today with me.
Hi, Svea, and thank you for hosting the community call. This is our second community call, and thank you everybody for joining in today or listening to the recording. So let me share my screen and I hope you see the presentation. So I'm happy that today I won't be alone, and with me it is Eniela. She basically prepared most of it already. My duty was just to give a little talk and then maybe show a little recording, but most of the work was done by her. Before we going forward, again, the disclaimer, which helps you understand how you can benefit out of our presentation and our demos and everything. What are we going to talk today? Well, obviously, we will talk about fundamental library styles and Angular. Also, we will talk about web components, but web forms, as I said. We will use the same approach as we used the last time, where we will show you a few scenarios or few use cases. So we hope this can be closer to your tasks and works during the day and makes it easier to build the applications. We believe this is the good way of helping the community by showing them what are the capabilities of fundamental library for achieving certain goals. But before further, you may ask, why are we talking about web forms? Such a boring topic, someone would say, even me. Well, it can be boring once you master creating web forms. It's not always trivial and straightforward, and that's why we are here to talk about it. Before jumping to the web forms, let me quickly talk about fundamental library very briefly, very shortly. So one of our goals is to provide harmonized user experience. Why is this important? Because we want the user to be prepared how the user experience will look like. Also, we are open source, not only because we love open source, but also we want to do this in an open way and get feedback from our users. Also, we drive the library in a federated way, because we know that one integrated solution doesn't always work in all the scenarios. Usually the developers, they need features from different pieces, from different libraries. So that's why we think this is very important. Another thing, we know that we won't be able to deliver all the possible patterns and components. That's why we focus on the most common ones. And then from there, we help the community build their own patterns. Front end. As I mentioned also in the previous call, we try to be less opinionated in the very opinionated front-end world. Basically, we're trying to help the front-end developers to accomplish their tasks, rather than being opinionated, this is the way to go, or no, the other way is to go. We're trying to help all the ways to go. last but not least is the enterprise qualities. I mean, they're linked with the previous points, but fundamental library is trying to bring you also theming, accessibility, and other enterprise qualities. So that's for fundamental library. Let's deep dive into the scenarios, and with this, I would like to hand it over to Eniela with the first scenario.
Okay. So hello everyone. So today we're going to go through 4 different scenarios of building a web form. If you want to follow a tutorial at your own pace, please do so by checking our blog post right here. And if later on you want to compare your code, you can do so by checking the GitHub account right here as well. So why we chose web forms? One of the reasons why we pick web forms for this community call is that they are highly used across the web. Around 74% of the existing websites worldwide use forms to collect user data or interact with users through inquiry or requests. They can be pictured as a bridge between a user and the website or the application. In the first scenario, I'm going to go through building a simple web form through an HTML, just plain HTML. One of the benefits of HTML is that it's an easy markup language that everyone with no coding experience can pick it up. But don't take my word for it. Let's just dive into the code and see it yourself. So here is the code of the first implementation, and here is how it looks in the web browser, basically. So HTML form is composed of several form controls such as field set, input type, radio button, other checkbox button right here, and many more form controls. Form controls are used to ensure that specific format is entered by the user. For example, in the input text, we are basically expected to enter a text format. And let's just see if for my first name, I will be, if I can enter a number, for example. And just press register, it will say that the requested, please match the requested format. Why it's saying so is because if we check the code right here, I have put some pattern conditions that the input should be only text and not numbers.
And Eniela, I'm sorry, may I interrupt you for a second?
Sure.
So we have the feedback that the font is too small. We checked this up front, and Deno and I agreed on that it's okay, but it seems that the audience needed a little bit more larger. Can you do this for us?
Sure. Let me just appearance. Is it okay right now? Or should
I hope so. So
I can
let us know in the chat, Nico, if this is okay now. Okay, I think you can move on. Thank you.
Okay. So as we see, right now, I have put the pattern condition that I can only enter just plain letters, not numbers. So if I go ahead and type my name and then the last name, Vela, and then so going through going through why we use the validation error is to ensure that we have a good user experience. This validation happens in the client side, as we don't have a server side at the moment. It's just like a front-end part. We haven't linked it with a database or whatsoever. Let's just type in. And if we try to do, this field is requested, so we cannot leave it out. Let's just pick my favorite ice cream. And if we try to register right now, nothing will happen. As I mentioned, we don't have it linked to a backend part. But if we press reset button, everything will be reset, and the user should start with the form from the beginning. Here is the code. It's also, as I mentioned, presented in the GitHub account. As we can see right now, like the building a form in HTML is pretty easy, and it does, but unfortunately, it doesn't offer much when it comes to visualization. Now let's see how Deno will transform this form into a modern-looking one.
Okay, thank you, Eniela. Actually, it's quite powerful, right? As you see, what Eniela showed you was plain HTML, native, something that existed for I don't know how many years, and pretty much any web developer with any front-end framework experience is aware. There is no single JavaScript line. There is no CSS. It's plain HTML, and you can achieve that much. Basically, you can have some client validation if you follow the attributes from the HTML tags and the forms, and the browser can visualize it in their native way. I mean, it's quite some, but it's not enough, right? So what we can do, basically, I'll be using Eniela's example, taking a plain HTML and try to style it so it looks more, I mean, following some design. Like in our case, it's going to be the Fiori 3 design from SAP. So later on, during the after the recording, we will upload the link to the code and the documentation. Everything is in GitHub available already as well. We can post this as well. So this is the Eniela's form, right? I'm using different browsers, so may you see some of the components are rendered slightly differently, but again, the features are pretty much the same. And I'll try to make it, looking more Fiori 3. For that purpose, I will be using fundamental library styles. Fundamental library styles bring you the Fiori look and feel, and you can apply it to any web technology, any front-end framework, or any web page. So for that purpose, I will try. I have the solution already created, but I don't want just to show it to you. I want to walk you through quickly and to show you how easy it is to create it this way. So we're going to use this form, right? Now it's running locally on me, on my local host, and then I can convert, for example, the buttons to look like Fiori 3. And if you come on the fundamental library page, you can see that the only thing what you need to add to the button, to the standard native HTML button, is a class. It's very similar to the input. Inputs as a part of the forms. You can come and see the same thing I need to do. I need to apply already. The only thing is the class of the input. The rest, it's maintained the way it was maintained for Eniela. So this is my code. I hope the font, it's not too little. I can increase it maybe a little bit more. Yeah. So just to show you that this is the code. I can, let's say, add Deno. I can save it, and then if I go in the browser, you're gonna see that immediately it changed the content. So it means this is the code. So here I will revert this change. Now my CPU is busy, but that's the live coding. So what I needed to do, I will add class in the input. Just I'll keep it for this, and then once I save it, you're gonna see that the first input, it's already looking quite promising, right? How is this done? Is it just the class? No, I added additionally, what we are showing right now. I don't know why this is taking so much time, but this is an Angular application, and for that reason, we included already the fundamental library styles and the theming package, right? so the style is already imported. That's what you need to do in parallel. So I can do, you see how quickly I can do this with few inputs. I'm not gonna code, obviously, everything, but let's do it just like that. And then we're gonna go to the button part. So I can do here, oops, was the button. You know, again, the same thing we can do for the reset. So once I save, I come here, and as you see, some of the components already converted to the Fiori style. So another thing what we can do is usually when you have multiple buttons, one of them is primary and the other one is more secondary button. So you know what we can do, we can come here on the button side, and then where are the types of the buttons? So primary button, it's either the default or the emphasize. So we can see here, I'm lazy, I can just copy the class and then go and put it to the submit button. And the other one, I will decide to use. I will decide to use the transparent one. So here, transparent is the last. I can just copy the class and then say it here, right? So if we go back, you can see that already the button changed. Last thing, as looks like my processor is not cooperating, but I'll try to be quick. So here, the other component that you can take advantage of it's the bar component. It has quite some use cases, right? So since this is going to be always on the bottom of the form, what I can do, I can, for example, use the footer one. I can come here and I can say, okay, let me take that part. I will just copy paste it the way it is, right? I mean, it has pretty much similar content, except that, or I can take the cozy one. Let's take the cozy one. I can come and copy and then come here. Okay, and then paste this here. The only thing is I'm gonna take this button that we modified and put it on the first here, and then the second for the reset, I'll put it here. Okay, so hope this goes smooth. And as you see, we already have the bottom footer where the actions are on the right side. We can go, quite fast with all the components. I'm not going to do it now for you, but I hope you trust me and you can do something similar. But some useful components that can be applied, and you're going to see the result after. It's the form grid. Again, very layouty and very CSS feature. So this is basically allows you to build your form following the SAP design, the Fiori 3 design. So there are different layouts where you can put the fields next to each other. We can put them on top of each other. Also, we offer different layout depending on your resolution. So you can go side by side. This is one form. You can do also the labels and the fields next to each other, right? Also, you can specify the ratio between the label and the field. Let's say, for example, in that particular case, if we want to put the label next to it, then we can take 4 columns, 8 for fields, and we don't want to have an empty gutter part, and so on and so forth. So after applying this, basically, you're gonna get something similar like that. So this example, has all the components still being native HTMLs. As you see, for example, here the label, the inputs are the native elements. The only additional stuff is the classes that we added, and then we added the form grid. The form grid that makes this page look like more accomplished. So all these components, even though they are native, they have the Fiori tree support. So the focus is here. And another thing is, like, let's say if I leave it empty and then click register, it tells me this is a required field, and this comes from the browser. Again, there is no JavaScript. It's just HTML and a little bit from fundamental stuffs. Quite amazing, right? Not much overhead. And here, even though this looks like, let's say, Fiori tree component, if you click on it, you get the native browser date picker support. So I can come and I can pick a different day. I can come and then change with the years and the months. Again, this is pure native HTML, so it doesn't need to bring additional libraries for that. Oh, that's good. So I showed you all these things, how it looks final. What we can do is we can see that this is themable, right? So the only thing what I need to do is change. So this is a simple application. It doesn't have much complexity to have the flexibility to change the theme on the fly, but it's quite easy. So here, let's see, I want to import the high contrast black theme. So I will import the delta theming from fundamental styles as a high contrast, and the same thing I'm going to import. I will import the theming parameters for high contrast black. So the only import is what I need for the application, right? To make it simple. So once this is compiled and we run, instead of seeing this quartz light theme, we're going to be seeing the high contrast black. So this is to show that even though we use native HTML and a little bit styling, still this is themable, right? And it's quite well. So again, this is just HTML, CSS, no JavaScript, and still a great result. Should we stay here? Obviously not. We can now gear up and use Angular as a framework and to build forms where you can get more features and functionality available for you. And with this, I'll hand it over to Eniela, who will show you one example with building web forms with Angular. Eniela?
Back with me again. So in this scenario, we're going to advance our form a little bit more, and we're going to use Angular, but with a twist. So what is Angular? Angular is a component-based framework which is used to build scalable web application. Each component has an HTML, CSS file which helps with the visualization of the component in the website, and the TypeScript which gives the value to the component. Well, from what we're seeing right now, it seems like a lot of coding, HTML, CSS, TypeScript. Hence, we are going to use a fundamental NGX library, which is an Angular-based library, but it provides already built-in components and ready-to-use components. Additionally, the library doesn't require any styling from our side, as it provides the modern Fiori look by default. However, the developer can switch the styling to a brand new horizon, but we're going to talk about it later in another call. Before diving into the code, I want to share with you that there are two different types of web forms in Angular. There is the template-driven one and reactive forms. Both are supported by the fundamental NGX library. Okay. So before diving into the code, let's see what the template offers. So template-driven are widely used in login, sign up, contact forms. They are easy to use and simple to code. Most of the logic and validation happens in the HTML template through the ng model right here. So let's just see from the code perspective how this looks like. So previously, Deno demonstrated you that we were using fundamental styles library, but right now we're going to use the ngx one. To do so, you'll have to download the specific requirements. If you go through the documentation right here, it walks you with the important implementation that you need to add in your project. We have already incorporated fundamental ngx in our project. As we can see right in the package JSON, we have the fundamental ngx core library implemented. So let's just see from the code perspective how it looks like and how it shows in the browser as well. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so we have right here, we have the Angular using the template-driven one, but with fundamental ngx. As we can see right here, let me just close this part. All the aspect form of the validation and everything happens through the ng model, as mentioned earlier. But we're using the fundamental ngx library, so our components look a little bit different. To know like which component you want to use for your project, you can go through the documentation, and it is explained. For example, for this one, we're going to use for the first one, we're going to use the input group. So let's just go through the documentation and see how we can implement a group. You have all the code right here, and you can just follow along through the documentation and adapt it to your project. As from our project right here, we see that we have an icon, and then we have the text format. Let's just try to enter a number. Again, it says that the first number, the first name is incorrect, as if we see right here in the pattern, right here, we have entered only, we accept only letters, not numbers. Also, the minimum length should be 3, so we have to go with the required, with the requirements. So let's just say any. It will work for me because I have the requirement 3 and everything works fine. So again, it will go through. If I just leave the email like this, obviously the email is incorrect. So I will have to write the whole thing basically, like with aiden.com, just the email format, also the password. Okay, and then like the date of birth, it is a component directly from the ngx library, so we can put any date we want. We can put we can pick a country. So how it works from the code perspective is that any error that we throw is showed through the FD form message component that is provided again by the ngx library. These errors are triggered through the TypeScript right now. Right here, we have created a general function that if the matching requirement, if the requirement doesn't match, we will throw the error, like we'll indicate the error right here. Also, as I mentioned earlier, the TypeScript gives a value to the components. We see that the drop-down value, the first one for the country, is right here. It's given, the values are added right here. And also we have the other drop-down button for the flavor of the ice cream. So everything works fine, and but in this case, everything is working from the template side. Like everything is built in the component aspect, right? Oh, right here, from the component aspect right here, everything happens in the HTML part. As we can see, it's pretty simple. Using fundamental NGX, we don't need to code much. We can just get used with documentation and the form and the components that we want to incorporate in our project, and it will be easier to implement all the values and everything without a lot of coding and without a lot of styling. Also, like as we can see right here, we don't have any styles. Like the style sheet is completely empty for our template template-based project. But I mentioned earlier that Angular is offering also reactive forms. So we saw together right now like the template-based one. Now I'm letting you follow Deno into the reactive forms and see what we can do with the reactive forms and fundamental NGX.
Thank you, Eniela. So, I mean, you can say, well, we covered the web forms with Angular and that's it, right? But actually, Angular offers you different options that you can consider depending on your scenario. So we saw the template driven, and also as Eniela mentioned, Angular offers reactive form. This is a little bit, well, maybe more different than the template driven, but it gives you or it provides a model driven approach for handling the user form inputs. And we know in general that the inputs from the user can change over time. The reactive form is considered more robust, more scalable, more reusable, and easier to test. Also, another advantage is it uses an explicit and immutable approach for managing the state in the form at any given point of time. Each change of the state basically returns a new state. And this allows you to maintain the integrity of the model between each change. Another advantage is it's built around the observable streams, where your form inputs and values are provided to you as streams of input values, which can be accessed synchronously. So for testing, as I said, it's easier and straightforward because you are assured that the data is consistent and predictable when it's requested. What is the main difference, or the main difference between the template-driven and the reactive form? Reactive form provides synchronous access to your data model, immutable with observable operators, and change tracking through these observables, no matter your change detection in Angular. So I'll be using or reusing pretty much most of the layout and the components that Eniela showed in the previous example, but apply the reactive form. So we're going back to the example. Before even actually going to the example, something that helped us basically drive the presentation today is the Web Accessibility Initiative. It's quite useful for us, but also we find it important to create forms, not only for disabled people, but when you create forms for everybody to be easier to fill, so the user doesn't need to think about it too much, and go smoothly. Those users can come more often to your website. So the very important parts that I want to quickly go over is the labeling, right? In some cases, you can use labels and then link them with the components. You can use hidden elements for the screen readers. Grouping controls is very important, also grouping certain fields which are meaningful to each other. Providing the instructions, as you saw, the placeholders could be one option, but also you can provide something before the form. Validating the input, as you saw from Eniela's part, that there is a client validation. This usually when we discuss in our projects, should we use client validation or backend validation? Actually, you can use both, right? You can unload the backend with a simple basic input validations, like such a thing like email, maybe some patterns for your names or other stuff. So avoid the round trips of loading the backend with those. And of course, as addition, you can offer the backend validation as well. Both of them are complementary and they're helping each other. The user notification is something that also, like when the user does a mistake, you show some indications what exactly it's wrong, what exactly it's expected. This can help the user to faster correct the mistakes and then move on. Another two aspects that most probably we will cover in our next community call, it's the multi-page forms and the custom controls. So multi-page form is basically advising to avoid creating a big web forms, right? Long, that it's heavy and people get exhausted, and break them in small chunks, in small steps. But for that, we can show more in 2 weeks from now. So my example, so I will close the simple forms that we saw before, and then move on to the reactive one. So in the reactive, the main part is mainly driven in the component class, right? So now my scrolling, it's really bad. I don't know why the CPU decided to keep 100% busy. But anyway, what I'm going to be showing, this is mainly, it's coming from TypeScript and Angular, nothing specific to fundamental Angular, where you can define your form group with the data, with all the form controls. And these form controls, basically you link them with your components on the screen. So as you see, for example, this is the input, right? And then it's linked with the form control first name. So we try to, even though this is fundamental Angular specific, a lot of the components in the markup that you see, they are native HTML with additional footprint from Angular and fundamental NGX. Another part, you can link the label again to the input. They are visible to each other. They are not hidden in black box. So this label is for this input, right? This label can find the input and access it. The other thing is you can show the state on the screen. So since you have the state already as part of the form control, you can show it and link it to the component itself, to the state. And then also you can show this form message. So this page, what does it have additional? So all the components are here. They are linked with the reactive form controls. The labels are also connected in case they're required. And additionally, the form grid is applied just to make the whole form look more more consistent. So if I go to the browser and access the form, so it's going to be here. So we show the simple form style, the template driven, and then this is the reactive. It's not different than the others. It looks the same. The only thing is what is behind under the hood. And you don't expect anything different, but let's say if I start now going on the fields, you can see the similar thing like Eniela showed, that this field is required. And since it's required, if I focus out, it's gonna show, because of the status error, with this thicker line around the input. So I can write here and then decide to erase. And the moment I'm done, again, it shows this field is required. You need to fill it. So I mean, the components are pretty much the same. I'm not gonna go and show you everything. It's just a different way of maintaining the data. That's what we wanted to show you today. again, I want to advertise and I want to invite you guys in 2 weeks from now to join us again to our next SAP Community Call, where we're going to talk web forms in Fundamental Library, where we can not only bring you the features that we mentioned so far, but also work on the development experience. So make it easier to create complex forms and maintain them with our platform package from Fundamental Library. So thank you for joining us today. Feel free to reach us on our community pages, follow our tag page, and stay tuned. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deno. And we are, of course, not at the end, because we also want to cover the questions. And I have seen that there have been a question during your presentation earlier, Deno, where you showed the demo about if you use the class button. But I guess during the demo, this has been answered. So if the user is still in the call and the question has not been answered, please let us know via the chat. And also all the others, it's your time now, your opportunity to speak to Eniela and Deno, who showed really all the content in detail. And it's your time to ask a question. And you can use the chat for it. And also it's really great that you mentioned the part 2, Deno, because yeah, it's only in 2 weeks, and I have also added the link to the YouTube live stream here in the chat. So you can click on the link, and then you can set the reminder for the next live stream in 2 weeks. And of course, also I have added the link to the topic page in SAP Community, and also to your profiles, Deno and Eniela. So thanks so much for the presentation. I have also written something here during the presentation, and I have a question. So I have some questions. For example, you were talking about 2 different forms, so the template form and the reactive form. Can you briefly elaborate when you use these forms?
I can answer that. Well, that depends on the purpose of the web form. If you are building a small web form with predefined features, you can use template-driven one, as they are easier to implement and easy to code. Although in the future, if you need a more powerful and complex form, where you need to have like a separation between the view and the logic, reactive forms are a better choice in this case. So it's totally up to the developer to choose it. But if you want a more scalable one, reactive forms are better to use.
Ah, very good. Thanks for that. Again, if the audience wants to ask a question, please go ahead and use the chat. And in the meanwhile, you have talked about Fundamental Library NGX. Is it possible to use this in the already built project?
Well, if the developer has already built an Angular project with their own logic, it's better to incorporate the fundamental styles, the styles that we saw in scenario 2. Like that, they don't have to incorporate a different logic, but they get the Fiori feel and the modern look from the Fiori through the fundamental library styles. So yeah, it will be easier to incorporate it that way.
This is really good. That sounds good. A final question, because I have heard about this in the past. So do you support Horizon family themes in Fundamental Library?
I will let Deno speak for it.
I will answer the question, and I would like to answer it also by sharing my screen one more time. Let me quickly share. So in short, yes, and I want to show you a little bit more even the style that we showed before. So if you come in Fundamental Library styles, we're wrapping up the theming support for the Horizon families, and we are very excited to release it in the next days or a week. So let's take the example button, right? let's use these colorful ones. You can switch it to the morning horizon and it will switch the buttons to morning horizon. Same thing it's going to be if you go to the evening horizon, right? And then which one is more colorful to show? I don't know. Let's go to which one was more color? I don't know. Anyway, the big difference that you're going to see, for example, is the show bar, right? So if you go in the show bar in the Fiori tree, also known as a quartz, the show bar is dark. And then if we go in morning horizon, as morning, the show bar is white. So what I'm going to do here, as you saw before, for the simple styled page, I will import, let's say, SAP Horizon, what was the name, dark. And the same thing, I will import it from the theming parameters, basically the colors. So dark, save it. This needs to recompile to import the styling. And then once this is built, we should be able to see this. Let me go to the main page. And then by any time, you're going to see the show bar and everything a little bit different. Okay, let me refresh. Yeah, this is the evening horizon. And then the one that we created or we convert from simple HTML with a little bit of styling, it got the latest horizon theming as well. So by using the fundamental library, you can get also the latest design that are coming from SAP as well.
Yeah, that looks really good. And I think that's a good opportunity to lighten this a little up. All right, so there are no more questions. Oh, well, there is one more question, just in time. Can we check out the code for the sample app you are showing?
Yes. Sure. I can share the screen just to show you where you can find it. We will post it later on here in the video. So in the GitHub, you can go and find in the SAP samples, there is this fundamental NGX sample apps. So this is maybe not easy, we'll post it later on, but the source code is here. So for example, you can come and see, let's say, the simple form that Eniela was showing, and that's what it is. So everything is available as reference.
Very good. Yeah, we can add this to the description later on after the replay is available. Nico, I hope this was something you wanted to see. So I think we are at the end. No more question. This is always the good explanation that you have explained it very well. So there are no questions. Again, I really encourage the audience to join the part 2 of Fundamental Library on May 30th. Check out the link here in the chat or simply go to our community channel. You will find it there. And my last words, thanks so much, Eniela. Thanks so much, Deno, for having been part of this today. I'm really looking forward to hosting your next call on May 30th. And thanks to our audience. It was really good that you joined us. Have a great day ahead wherever you are, and see you in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.